Righty-ho.
Righty-ho, Smoljo.
Here we are. So, first order of business, plugging the Patreon. Yep. Patreon.com/GenesisEvangelizani if you want to help us out and get better equipment and so on and so forth. You know what to do. Thank you very much. Moving on. Okay. So, Season 11. Series 11, rather.
Season 11, Episode 3, Death to the Daleks.
Yes. Series 11, Episode 3. Written by Mallory Blackman and Chris Chibnall.
Yes.
Didn't know that before this. And Chris Chibnall. What are your initial thoughts of the episode Rosa?
Lovely.
Mm.
It's a lovely episode.
Yeah.
Best of the season so far.
By a long shot.
Yeah. It was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Not perfect. Wouldn't say it's great, but it's nice.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like thoroughly.
So did I, but
I only really have one major negative, which we'll get on to. But like, other than that, like every aspect, like we had varying degrees of enjoyment for me. But the stuff I really enjoyed, like I really enjoyed. So yeah.
To me, it was not a blowaway episode, but a very, very good one. A very well executed one on almost every level.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Like, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites.
No.
But it's...
But I think saying anything's your favorite after only seeing it once is too... Like, I didn't say Heaven Sent was my favorite.
Neither. No.
And, like, one of my
favorites. No, I didn't get Heaven Sent the first time I watched it.
Like, I watched it and I knew I loved it, but I was kind of like, it's too early for me to say that I loved it. So, like, it's too early for me to say it's my best.
Yeah.
Then I continued to watch it on replay every day of that week.
Yeah.
And I was
it
like,
just gets better and better.
I was just like, okay, no, this is really good.
Yeah.
So Rosa, I've seen 3 times at this point, and I've liked it more each time I've watched it.
Right.
So it's. I'm not necessarily going to say it's one of my favorites, but I really, really enjoyed it. Yep. Like I loved it a lot.
Okay.
Like I'm really positive on this episode. Yeah. Cool. So we'll dive right into the main review. So, what were your thoughts of the Doctor in this episode?
Jodie's best performance so far, by far.
Absolutely.
Showed everything I wanted to see from her.
Mm-hmm.
Was because this is quite a serious situation. She took it way more seriously.
Yeah, but she also had that typical Doctor thing where she knows she's way smarter than her enemy.
Yeah.
But she's like...
Yeah, she was 100% she was the Doctor in this.
Using the 2 confrontations she had with what's his name? Krasko. The 2 conversations she had with Krasko, the confrontations first on the silo. That wide shot where they're both on each one of those silo things. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous. That shot is beautiful. Just wanted to point that out. But the way she was delivering her dialogue, and I wrote it down in my own notes here somewhere, just because I want to get it, what exactly I had written down, because I want to get the quote right. But she said, I think it was, don't threaten me.
Ah, yes.
Just when Jodie said, don't threaten me, I was like, yeah, that's the oncoming storm. That's that.
Yeah.
That's that.
But
Doctor,
it wasn't, it wasn't over the top either. It was controlled.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I'm going to push you out of a thing and potentially kill you. It was...
Yeah, and that's, I know we're sort of jumping ahead, but one thing I think that is important, especially in New Who, I think, is there's a certain chemistry between the Doctor and the composer.
Yes.
And I feel like the word I would use to describe Jodie and Segun Akinola would be controlled. Yes,
there's a sense of not reserved, but very controlled. Yeah, it's like, we'll get onto Akinola's score.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we'll get onto Akinola's score. Yeah. But absolutely, like Jodie was so in charge, but she wasn't domineering the episode. It wasn't about her. Yet she had such a big presence and had all these wonderful little moments. Like, there's the Steve Jobs gag, which I thought was quite a funny gag. Her reaction in the background where she was sort of smiling and giving the side eye because she wasn't sure if he was going to give it away. Yeah. And then just sort of goofily smiled at the cop was
adds another layer to it, yeah. It's what's great about her as an actor is she does all the right things, but she doesn't always steal the show, you know? Like, she is great, but doesn't take over.
She's a presence, but she's not the presence.
Exactly. Yeah. She makes it feel like it's not just her and disposables, as Missy would say. Yeah. It's like them as a group is...
Especially in this episode.
Yeah, especially in this episode, what is... They're sort of more... how do I say it? Like, it's a group.
Yeah.
It's a unit, you know? It's a team.
Yeah.
As opposed to... Like, and this is... You could say the exact same thing about the first TARDIS team.
Yeah. Oh!
Like, the first Doctor was not the focus of the story.
No.
But when he was on screen, it was amazing.
Because he was kind of this... he was almost a side character to begin with.
Yeah. Because Ian and Barbara were the point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and in this case, obviously we've known the Doctor for much longer, but there was that kind of balance there.
Yeah.
Where it was an ensemble.
Yeah.
And that's what a TARDIS team should be. Because when you have a Doctor and a companion, it's fine if they go back and forth and they kind of share their screen time because it's just sort of a duality thing. But when there's 4 of them, it has to be an ensemble.
Yeah.
Because otherwise someone's going to fall down, which usually happens. Like in the previous 2 episodes, Yasmin was barely had any input.
Yeah.
But in this, they were all used to a different effect and used quite effectively. But back onto the Doctor, she was at the core of this team without it feeling like it was just her, as we were saying. Like, it's Jodie's presence was so good in this and so controlled, and it felt. And every joke for me hit when she did a joke, and every I believed every.
She's a very funny lady.
She is.
Yeah.
She is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the editing kind of ruined her jokes in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But in this one, the editing worked for around her jokes.
Yeah, for almost all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Not the editing as a whole of the whole episode. I have a few quibbles here and there, but the actual, like, around Jodie, the editing worked.
Yeah. It's almost the exact opposite of The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
Because in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, there were things she was saying that could have been funny, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in this case, there were things she was saying that could have been funny, and for me, they were funny.
Yeah.
And they had lots of little doctorisms throughout the whole thing, like when she was writing on the wall, and like the little joke she had. The Banksy joke made me giggle. Like, I quite like that. When she's, or am I? I'm
starting to... The one thing I'm really starting to appreciate about a Doctor is that she kind of feels timeless.
You could put her in any serial, I reckon, and she wouldn't feel out of place necessarily.
Yeah. Just tone up and down a couple of the elements, and you've got a Doctor.
Yeah.
You know? And that is something that I also really liked about Capaldi as an actor as well. So it's like she's proving herself in that regard.
Absolutely. She already she doesn't feel like she has one defining thing.
Yeah.
She feels more like we were saying last week that my uncle pointed out, where she didn't quite have that duality, that little bit of an edge to her. In this episode, she showed it.
All due respect to Matt Smith, he's great, but when I recently rewatched Series 5, I found that when you watch 6 episodes in a row, he feels the same in every episode. Like, he's kind of got this defined personality.
Which, to a point, could work.
Yeah.
And I think in Series 5, like, the end of Series 7 and Series 5 are Matt Smith's strongest elements. You figure out what I think of the rest. But no, Matt Smith is a very, very fine actor. But the writing around him it sort of put him in a box.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, you get like Capaldi, who each season was a different character.
Yeah, pretty much. But what basically what I was saying is if you watch like the first 5 or 6 episodes of Series 5, you essentially get the same character in each episode, like played the same way. To the point where like he hits the same beats. Yeah. Because it's like I feel like I don't know. There's a exact point in The Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone where you notice it, like he says the same joke again.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's because like they filmed that one first.
Yeah.
And then they repeated it somehow. And it just it bugged me a little bit because it's like I want to see some variety. Even though this character was great, I want to see variety. Yeah. Good thing about Jodie is we have seen that variety already.
Already in 3 episodes.
It's not jarring. It's balanced.
It feels cohesive. Like the little bits we got, which felt weird and out of place last week. It's those kinds of bits, but done right.
Yeah.
The very intellectual, she's intellectually intimidating, is what she should be.
It's interesting because you were commenting about the Ghost Monument and about how her character was mishandled. Like, she was giving up easily and just not very not very strong. Whereas in this, it was the opposite. Like, she was very strong.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, because there was the moments like when she yelled at Ryan for the gun thing, where it's like, I get where they're coming from, but it didn't quite work last week for me. Yeah. Whereas in this, that "don't intimidate me" line, where she's just cool and calm and collected, and she says, "Don't intimidate me." It's just like, or threaten. Don't threaten me. Like, that line really worked for me because I believed that she could figure some way out of making this guy's life a living hell. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's that thing that the Doctor usually has. Like, specifically, I'm thinking Doctors 1, 6, 7 towards the end, 8 on Big Finish, 9 definitely, 10 and Capaldi. Yeah, like that thing where not necessarily violently, but they could dispose of you if they wanted to. They could deconstruct you psychologically. Yeah, well, I think the perfect example of that would be the end of The Family of Blood. That's like the that's the pinnacle of the Doctor's like, nope. Yeah, nah. You're gonna pay for what you did. Yeah. It's that's a good example. Like, and it as you said, it didn't feel like a jarring change. It felt like a logical and focused and improved one. Yeah. And I'm hoping that's just a fault of just whatever circumstances behind the scenes and Jodie getting her feet, and not a reflection on Chibnall. Yeah, well, it might be. Unfortunately. Yeah, we'll see. Because, what was her name? What was the other writer's name? Mallory Blackman. Yes, apparently she wrote a book called Noughts and Crosses, which I believe was about segregation. Because I studied it in high school. I don't remember that much about it, but because my mate was over and he watched this episode and he recognized the name, and she's like, oh, she wrote Noughts and Crosses, and he's a big avid reader of all sorts, and he was like, he really liked it. He comes from South Africa, right. so it's quite interesting because obviously there's filmed it in South Africa, yeah. But yeah, no, just the writer. See, the thing is, I don't know how much she knew about Doctor Who before going into it, but based on what she's just written here, she seems to get it. Yeah. She just seems to get what you can do with the show. You don't necessarily have to, because Jamie Matheson knew nothing about Doctor Who before he wrote Mummy on the Orient Express and Flatline. I know. Those two are like perfect like examples of ideas for Doctor Who. Yeah. You know? So you don't necessarily have to be a fan, you just have to get it. Yeah. Yeah. And like, exactly. But that's the thing I'm saying is like, even if she knew nothing of the show, she fit it. She fit like a glove. Yeah. It worked so well. Yeah. And her writing of the Doctor was excellent. Yeah. This is Jodie's best performance. Once again, the word is timeless. Like, this was a timeless episode that works. It would work years ago. It would work in the future. Absolutely. It works now. Absolutely. There's no... I feel like this is an episode that's not going to age. No. Yeah. Especially not with the message it's telling. Yeah. Absolutely not. Yeah. But also the character stuff in between. Speaking of, next topic, what did you think of Ryan in this episode? Better. Way better than... Ghost Monument, he let me down a bit. Yeah. And this came back up. He actually had a personality in this one. Like, he actually... Yeah. Like, and not just because of the circumstances. Like, little moments, even slightly more comedic moments. Like when he said, "Oh, shut up," to Yasmin. Yeah. And he was funny as well. And like, when he shot villain dude fella away. Krasko. When he shot him away, he's like, it worked. Like, that was funny. And but also, something I loved was how it started off with this kind of whimsical music as they ended up in 1950s, because it does the traditional Doctor Who. Yeah. We've landed in another time thing, and immediately it segues into this dude slapping him across the face just for trying to do something nice, and immediately you're like, oh fuck. Yeah. Oh fuck, this is reality. This is like, that was editing, directing, performances. We will get along to Akinola. Yeah. And the music. And it was just, that was a brilliant little sort of twist on the usual landing, awe-inspired kind of thing that they do. It was literally and metaphorically a slap in the face. Yeah, and it just sort of, even though we had that little bit of Rosa sort of beforehand, like we seeing it happen to Ryan, who's not, like, he's used to racism, but not to this degree. And it's like, Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He got real fired up as well. Yeah, I mentioned when we were rewatching it that Toast and Cole as an actor seemed way more focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd like, and especially like the scenes where he's sort of like smiling at Rosa and like looking in awe at her.
Yeah.
I believed it.
Yeah.
Like, it looks so genuine and so
and
like.
when he meets Martin Luther King as well.
Oh, that scene where he meets Martin Luther King. We'll get onto that.
Yeah.
But he's very good in that scene. He's so believable. I completely bought into Ryan in this episode. He wasn't 1 second comic relief and then other second exposition dump.
He also wasn't just a gimmick dyspraxia. Like he actually had a personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dyspraxia thing wasn't the only thing they really carried through of him. Not his fear of heights or.
And it was this personality that we thought was lacking from the first episode.
Yeah.
And probably the second as well, to a degree.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd argue possibly even more so in the second episode.
Yeah, true.
Ryan was really good in this episode, and not just because this is a story that so directly involves him because of his race, but like as a character, just generally in all the
I feel
scenes.
like I can get on board with him now because I've got his backstory and his personality.
Yeah, I'm starting to understand who he is, what makes him tick.
Yeah.
Ryan's much better in this episode. In fact, he's also really, really good with the next point we're going to bring up, which is Graham.
Yes. Now, the problem with the Ghost Monument is I felt there was a bit of awkward chemistry between them.
Or lack thereof.
It was just it was just strange. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it just didn't work. I think part of it was the editing, but it just didn't work for me. And then in this episode, suddenly, you believe it. They're grandson and grandfather.
Yeah, and Bradley Walsh in this episode.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Like in the scene where he's talking to the bus driver, trying to figure out like his bus route and trying to get him to go back onto the route, and the guy's just talking about it's the way it's always gonna be. Yeah. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And not just because it's sickening racism, but also because of Grace. Yeah. You can see in Bradley Walsh's eyes this whole range of anger and then sadness. But then a realization he's just got to push through because he's got a mission. He's got an objective. Like, just in his eyes, he goes through this whole range of emotion. And that happens throughout the whole episode. And leading up to that final moment where he's the reason.
Yeah, and in my reaction, I put my hand over my mouth when that happened.
It's so good.
Graham's the reason why it happens.
And the I don't want to be a part of this line. Yeah. Like, I found that more believable than the I don't want to go line by David Tennant.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, it kind of shook me to the core. Like, I was like, wow, that poor bastard. Yeah. Especially because based on the fact that, like, he was in a relationship with Grace, who was a black woman. Obviously, he's not racist. And to be confronted with such hideous racism, but he has to.
Yeah, he has to let it happen.
He has to let it happen.
Yeah.
Like, and there's this great shot when the driver's talking to Rosa, and it's just the face of the doctor, and the doctor, even though she's doing the right thing, you can see the doctor just feels sick.
Yeah, it's in a way it's reminiscent of when in Father's Day, when Rose had to watch her dad run in front of that car.
I was thinking that was actually my comparison when I first watched this episode. I was like, this is like Father's Day.
She had to run, and she had to watch her dad run in front of that car, and she wasn't allowed to save him. Yeah. 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 It's a similar. Yeah. It's a similar thing.
Yeah, where it just has to. It's just the way it has to be. That sort of even though the guy.
But yeah, Bradley Walsh works better when it's drama than if it's sci-fi, I think.
Oh yeah, like him in the first episode with the funeral scene and talking about cancer, like he's really believable. And in this one, just everything. Like he's so nuanced and like Bradley Walsh was my favorite companion in this episode. Graham was so good in this episode, and a piece of very clever show running. Had we not known he was a bus driver, that scene where he said, "Oh, we met because I was a bus driver," would have felt so forced and so unnatural and so weird. But because we establish, like, he's a bus driver, and they were in a great loving relationship, and she's kind of this kind of woman who would, be very chatty with him, and the fact, like, these little elements that we've learnt from the previous couple of episodes come back in this way to help move this story along, that is clever show running.
It is clever.
That is that's good show running, where things don't have to be big setups and payoffs, little setups and payoffs, like the Elvis cell phone line.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's a one-off gag where it's kind of funny at the beginning, but then it comes back later in the story because Frank Sinatra helps them out because they called him.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing.
And it was the same thing that Martin Luther King, by talking about him at the table, and then like it introduces that thought into your head.
Yeah.
And then when Ryan goes to meet him, it's like.
And the way I love what the way the camera pans around the room, and then you land on Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King, the actor, didn't really look like him.
No.
But then again, he's supposed to be about 10 years younger than when he gave the address.
Yeah.
So it's you know.
It was nice though.
It was that didn't detract from the scene at all. Yeah. Not at all. Like it was so powerful, and you completely believed Ryan's like awe because anyone. Unless
you know, actually, I think probably one of the strongest elements to this episode is it almost felt like a biopic. Yeah, in a way.
You believed Rosa Parks was a real woman.
Yeah,
and the fact, even though we met her husband very briefly, like we didn't need to. We got who he was and who she was just in this little scene, and all the scenes between Rosa and Ryan were really good. Yeah. So good, and so. Graham and Ryan were hugely stepped up in this episode.
Absolutely.
And I reckon, not as big of a step up, but also another step up was Yasmin.
Yeah, and technically speaking, she was still the fourth wheel, but she was actually utilised pretty well.
And she had a couple of good, like that moment where she's allowed in the front of the bus, but she's not sure where she's supposed to sit.
Yeah.
That's such a...
Yeah, that's great.
And they don't dwell on it. It's just this little moment.
Yeah.
And it's such a good...
I'm almost convinced that Chibnall cast these actors because of this episode. Like, to have... because he knew that he was having a Rosa Parks episode, therefore he needed Ryan, someone to... represent represent the dilemma, right? Yeah. And then Yasmin, someone who's a grey area, who's unsure of the dilemma.
And then Graham, who's connected to this because of his family.
Yeah.
And like the thing is, you think about this, like with Rose, this episode wouldn't have worked with Rose.
Rose Tyler.
Yeah, Rose Tyler.
Yeah, no, because she doesn't have any.
No.
I mean, I guess Mickey, but that's
like. But he's like, unless it was end of series 2 Mickey, like, and even then that would feel really out of place to have this kind of gruff badass hero in the middle of this Rosa Parks story.
I think this could have worked with Martha, I reckon.
But every episode could have worked with Martha.
True.
Martha's great.
I mean, I don't think Hell Bent would have worked with Martha.
It would have been better.
No, but it would have been still shit.
It would have been, but it would have been better. Anyway, but Yasmin, like that little moment, and also how she was talking about going back from the mosque and how like she deals with racism in modern day, but she sees how far the US and the rest of the world has come in 50 years, and that gives her hope for 50 years from now, and just that little bit of optimism in this horrible story where you're confronted with real life horrors.
Yeah.
And she comes out of it with an optimistic attitude. That gives you a little bit of her insight as well as to who she is. She's got this positive attitude. She has this positive outlook. And she would have to as well as a cop.
Yeah. And considering, based on what we've heard, considering next episode is supposed to be about her backstory, this is a nice lead-in.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we got a little bit of that she's a bit of an optimist.
Yeah. Or
she had to be in the circumstance. When backed into this corner, literally. Yeah. She's an optimist.
And it's nice that they tie it back to the fact that she's a police officer because of Rosa Parks.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And also there was this nice banter between her and Ryan now.
Yeah.
That's good.
There was a little bit of like some of it didn't quite work for me, but some of it like it was way more convincing than any of the dialogue that's happened in the previous two.
Yeah, I liked the bit where they were talking about how like that guy snuck into her room in year 10 or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, he's punching above his weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, shut up. Like, it was nice little real. It felt real. They felt like real people in that moment.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything more to say about Yasmin?
No, not really.
Yeah.
But
she was a big improvement as well.
Yeah.
All the companions were really...
I had nothing wrong with her. One thing I will say is they really used the companions well by separating them.
Yes.
Because you can do a lot. Like that's the best part about having a 4-piece TARDIS team is that you can separate them.
And they all have different functions to serve. Like, as we said, like Graham in that pool scene. Oh, that's so good because he has to again, and then they one up it with the bus scene later. Where four-piece TARDIS teams are ultimate for historicals. Yeah, because historicals tend to have a lot of characters in them. Yes, they have to. Yeah.
And like examples like the Crusade, for example, that story separates the characters and makes the story really interesting because of it. Yeah, so you got like multiple storylines going on at once.
Absolutely.
And I was a bit worried watching this because I was thinking maybe they wouldn't have enough time by separating the characters because separating the characters makes it...
There's only one particular subplot that I feel was a bit rushed, but other than that, like, it seemed to flow really well. Yeah. Like, it was a really, really well, tightly crafted story.
Yeah, it was nice.
On the whole.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because when you've got a whole... or however long it is, to only write one story, you can focus on it. Yeah. It's pretty much the reason why Stephen Moffat was so good during the Russell era, because he only had one story per year.
And he could just focus on it, and Stephen's brilliant imagination and brilliant mind.
Yeah, and he didn't have that terrible deadline that made
that looming thing.
Deadline that made his script so
like I'm sure he had a
wishy-washy.
Deadline. I'm sure he had a deadline, but he didn't have to write 7 scripts in that time.
And then look over all the others.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is part of it. The fact because when you have more time, you can just make every scene better.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can elevate it and have things set up and pay off and like because you can write a good story in one script. It's like that's kind of fun, but you can elevate it by having lots of little things that interweave and just boost it up a little bit. Like little jokes, like the Elvis thing coming back with the Frank Sinatra thing, and Graham's whole kit and caboodle. Like it just, like I was really taken by Graham, his subplot in this story. Like he's been boosted up in my estimation because of it.
He's fantastic.
All right, moving on to the titular character, Rosa Parks.
Funnily enough. The actress who plays her was also in 42.
Yeah, when you messaged me this, he messaged me this on Facebook, because watching the episode, I was like, I recognize this actress, but I cannot picture where. And then when he sent me the image, I was like, of course!
Yeah.
She was from 42!
Yeah, but the problem with 42 is the side characters are so forgettable.
Oh, they're terrible, yeah. But what wasn't terrible was Rosa Parks.
No, she played it very well. I'm not overly familiar with a lot of the historical accuracies and whatnot. I've read up online there's some people that are a bit annoyed at this episode because it didn't get things accurate. But it was... If looking at it from a standpoint of not knowing history, the portrayal was dramatic enough for me to care.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like a book adaptation. For me, accuracy is good.
Yeah.
But you cannot be beholden when telling a creative new story.
Yeah.
It's this thing of, this is not exactly how Rosa Parks was. This is not exactly how things happened. There were not 2 versions of different time travelers. Yeah. There wasn't a good time traveler and an evil time traveler in Rosa Parks' time.
But at the end of the day, it did still relatively tell the same story.
It did, and it did it in an effective way because the stuff around Rosa wasn't affected by the science fiction elements. The only thing...
Yeah, that's one thing we were worried about.
But what was brilliant about it was it wasn't the racists that were the aliens. It was the alien was trying to prevent this from happening. Yeah. Because of the ripple effect. Yeah. And that was such an interesting story because it meant that this event had to occur. It was such a...
It's like a fixed point in time.
Yeah, like we were saying with the comparison to Father's Day, but with the stakes a little bit higher because of the historical significance.
It's like a world event, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the character herself, if we didn't really care about this version of Rosa, the story would have suffered, but I did. I found her quite endearing, and you could see she was a strong-willed woman, but she clearly just wanted to get on with everything. Like, she had passionate beliefs, but, like, she still needed to work, and she liked her work. Like when she was saying, like if you want a good job, do it. Like, take your time.
One thing that was really good was that she wasn't just characterized based on this event. Like,
no,
she actually had her own personality, her own character.
Well, the fact that we opened with her and we got to understand where she was coming from, and there was little things like the direction, like the shot of the bus driver looking at her, scowling at her through the mirror, the rearview mirror. That was a gorgeous shot. Yeah. And oh no, we'll get onto second economic score later. Yeah. But her theme is dope. Yeah. But yeah, Rosa as a character was really, really good. And like her little moments when she's talking with Ryan outside. Oh yeah. And he says, "Oh, me and Manan want to thank you." She's extremely likable. Yeah. Like she is such a warm presence. But she's strong enough that when she does this, when she stands up to him, you believe it. And she doesn't stand up to it because the doctor told her to. Yeah. That was another thing I didn't mention, but that was something I was worried about, like where it would be this historical effect was directly affected by the doctor just urging her to do it. No. But the doctor and Rosa barely interacted. Yeah. Ryan and Rosa interacted. Yeah. And that was really good. And it wasn't because of Ryan that she did it. It was her own... Yeah. Like it was her own moral compass. Because the doctor's dilemma was with Krasko. Yeah. Yeah. And that was perfect because that's where the doctor should have been. The doctor in this story, I think she even stated this in words. She was the shield guarding this moment. Yeah. You know? Absolutely. She wasn't the moment herself. Yeah. And yeah, and also one little bit I loved is when she was being arrested and she gives a small little smile to Ryan as she goes past. Yeah. Like a little knowing smile. It's not this big confirmation that she knows he's a time traveler or something like that. It's just she knows it's the beginning of something. Yeah. And that's it's such a small little moment, but I really like it. And I really like Rosa's character in this. Yeah. She was a well-rounded person that we got to know within this little episode. Yes, brilliant. On to our next topic, Krasko. Right. Well, start with the positives. I loved that he was a time agent and not an alien. The fact that he had a vortex manipulator and stuff. Yeah. Just little things like that where I'm just like, okay, that feels like it's in the same. I love that he's come here to fuck with time. Yeah. Like that's so cool. Yeah. Also, I have a question for people watching at home. Was Krasko ever mentioned in an episode of Torchwood? Because he's a guy from the future who killed 2,000 people, is the implication. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, and I feel like maybe that's something Jack may have mentioned or something. Just, I don't know. It's probably just me misremembering. But I was getting flashbacks to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang when I saw this character. We're kind of, absolutely, same. With John Hart? Yeah, John Hart. Yeah. With John Hart. Oh, God, now I've got this vision in my head of Krasko and Captain Jack. Like, well, the thing is, when Krasko first showed up, I wondered if he was going to mention Captain Jack at all when he found out it was the Doctor. Yeah. Because of the vortex manipulator, I thought maybe he knew Jack. But, like, I'm glad it didn't go that route, but I'm just wondering if because he sounds like an infamous mass murderer. Yeah. And they didn't mention if he was a soldier or anything. They just said that 2,000 people died because of him. I don't think Jack would have run into Krasko post Empty Child. No. I think if Jack had met him, it would have been in the past. Yeah, and he would have forgotten. Yeah. Yeah. But like, it was an interesting. Like the concept was really cool, and the actor was really good. Yeah. And the music was really cool. It was so simple and really effective. Oh yeah, yeah. We'll get onto the music. Yeah. Let's just keep bringing it up, but we'll get onto it. Yeah. We'll go fully into it later. The biggest negative was I'm unsure about his exit. It was very just sudden. Yeah. And I have a feeling he may be coming back. Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Tim Shaw's exit. Well, Tim Shaw just... That's my thing and also the cigar from Ghost Monument. And Art Malik. Yeah. Literally just vanished. Yeah. That's 3 villains in a row that have just vanished. Yeah. So my thinking is... There may not be a series arc, but I have a feeling there may be reoccurring elements. Yeah. And I have a feeling these characters may come back later. Like I said this last week about Art Malik, I'd like to see him back. Yeah. So, I don't know. But you got to be careful with that because you don't want a messy finale. No, absolutely with, like, not. 20 different villains. No. No. Unless it's like the War Games. Oh, yeah. But the War Games is 4 hours. And
the finale's in 1 hour. So
yeah. Well, 10 episodes of Series 11, 10 episodes of the War Games.
Oh, yeah. I highly doubt it.
No way.
I doubt it.
No matter
not
nothing. I'm gonna sound like a cynical and hipsterish prick here, but nothing in New Who is ever gonna come close to the War Games.
Pretty much.
The War Games is so good. Anyway,
I mean, New Who doesn't really have a 4-hour story.
No.
Anyway.
No. It can't.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, children.
I mean, unless you want to count Oxygen and the Monk 3-parter as one story. No.
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 No. And even then.
Well, what about?
You considering that like the War Games?
Unless you want to count.
The specials.
No, that's not one story. Planet of the Dead and Waters and Mars aren't even in the same time zone.
No.
No.
Literally, because they're on different
planets. No.
But yes. Sorry, that's tangent. Back on.
Closest thing would be Series 1, I think.
Yeah, Series 1's really good. And Series 3. Series 3 is underrated.
Yeah. But I'm saying like Series 1 has an interlinking story.
Yeah, true. And so does Series 3.
Yes. Yeah, it does, technically speaking. Except
it's done better.
The episodes in Series 3, some of them don't actually link, I think.
Well, neither do all of the episodes in Series 1. Bad Wolf does not count as a proper, like... It's a reoccurring.
But
thing.
you've got the Rift, and you've got the Slovene story, and you've got the Satellite 5 story, and you've got the Time War, and you've got.
But other than Bad Wolf, how does Father's Day come into that?
Because Father's Day connects to the parting of the ways. The whole reason they drive they do the chain thing with the car is because of Pete.
Oh yeah, that's fair enough. To build up Pete, it's a good character story, and I'll give you that. Yeah. Anyway, tangent. Series 3 is better. Krasko. Yeah, his ending, unless he comes back, his ending was a very flat. Because he was an interesting character with a lot of interesting story. But to be fair, the point of this narrative was not the villain being defeated. It was that moment. And that's good. I would have rather they shortchanged us with the villain's ending than shortchanged us with the bus.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I just think if this story was a 2-parter, it would actually be better, in my opinion.
Yes, flesh out Rosa and flesh out everything.
Like the villain story, if you did a, because obviously they could bring him back, but just for this story's sake, if you fleshed out his ending, it might not be as unsure about it.
Yeah.
Because Ryan did literally just press a button.
Yeah, that was a very like.
Yeah. Oh god, I was watching Journey to the Center of the TARDIS last night, and it's literally a machine that's this big friendly button on it. The doctor presses it and resets the plot. Like
that's right.
It's like admitting that it's a reset button.
I gotta rewatch Journey to the TARDIS because I wonder if it's secretly brilliant or just bad.
It's a weird one. It's because it's a really interesting idea, but it's written by Stephen Thompson, who's one of the worst writers.
Oh, Flesh 2-parter, eh?
No. Curse of the Black Spot and Time Heist. And Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
Ooh. In Series 8, Series 7 and Series 8 is like the opposite of Matheson.
Yeah.
Where Matheson came out with a 1-2 combo, and then...
Yeah.
Thingy was Stephen Thompson.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably say Journey to the Center of the TARDIS is my favourite Stephen Thompson story, but that's not saying much.
Right, but that may be just because it's purely creative, whereas the others are... I mean, Time Heist has some creative ideas, but tangent.
Oh, but the ending, though.
It's real bad.
Ugh.
But
Hyde 2.0. Anyway, back to Rosa. Krasko, sorry. Yeah. Nice villain. Great scene with Jodie.
Both of them.
The ending was a bit...
Flat.
But...
Yeah. Oh! Yes. No, yeah, never mind. I'll get onto that later.
One thing I will say about that scene he had with Jodie, though, it reminded me of School Reunion, when the Doctor and Mr. Finch?
No, it's not Finch, is it?
No.
What's it?
The Krillitane man.
Anthony Head.
Yeah. They reminded me of that scene a little bit. That's good. Because I love school reunions.
School reunion's good, yeah. Yes. I think that's all we can say about Krasko. Really?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Jodie in that scene was definitely channeling both RTD doctors a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that scene, like I was picturing, like I could picture Eccleston and Tennant saying those lines, and I could hear exactly the intonations in my head with those lines.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Yeah.
It really worked.
Is that enough about Krasko?
I think so.
Yeah.
Very, very solid, but kind of just a bit villain of the weeky.
Yeah. But the fact that he's a time agent
made him more interesting. It elevated him from above.
It's better than an alien in disguise. Like that would have been disappointing.
Yeah. That would have been a bit naff. Cool. On to James Blake.
Was he the bus driver?
I believe so.
Yes. Well played. Very well acted. Played his role in this story, I think.
And the fact that when Graham was Graham was talking to him, you got to know where he was. Like, he wasn't... Obviously, he was a hateful prick. But that, for him, came from a place of just it being the status quo.
Yeah.
Which made him a little bit...
the way things are.
Yeah.
Can't change it. Won't change.
Yeah. Obviously, he was really aggressive and horrible. He was a horrible man. But they made him a little bit more diverse than just a two-dimensional screaming and yelling bad guy.
No, he was doing it because it was the law, not because he was... I mean, he may have had... He
was clearly racist.
Yeah.
They made him... obviously I don't know what the real guy was like, but in this narrative, he was clearly racist.
Yeah. But the bottom line is that it was the law. Yeah. I think
that pushed him over the edge to... from what I got, unless it wasn't law, he probably wouldn't just talk. He probably would not talk to them.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't. That'd be a non-entity to him.
Yeah.
Whereas other characters, like that guy at the beginning, was like just pure hatred.
Yeah. Oh, you're the guy at the beginning that looked like Channing Tatum, but fatter.
Yeah, the guy who slapped Ryan. Yeah. Oh man, that made me grind my teeth. That was. Horrible.
That character basically was just establishing the story.
And the sheriff as well that came and visited them. And
that one too. Yeah, James Blake was well handled, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't cartoony racist.
Yeah,
he was just real racist, which made him more sickening.
That's one thing I was really worried about going into the story, is that they were going to make it all about. It's like, this is the story that makes white people look shit. That's not what it was.
But the thing is, I was more worried it'd be Ryan would get kidnapped by a bunch of racists or something.
God.
When they brought up oh god, I'm forgetting his name, but the boy who was murdered, the black kid who was murdered.
Yeah.
I was expecting them to do a thing where Ryan would get kidnapped and try and be serious about it, oh, look how edgy we're being by having... And it would have just felt I was worried about this episode being tasteless.
Yeah.
But it handled everything in a very classy way.
Yeah.
Not class that's shit spin-off, but class as in, actual class.
Class. God. Don't ever make us react to that, please.
No. If you're a patron and you have a request, please not that.
Don't ask for class.
No, please.
Now they're going to do that shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, side characters, right?
Yep, that's the next one. Side characters.
How about we go for Martin Luther King first?
Didn't have enough of a presence. I know he's only in one scene. Ryan's reaction to him was really good, and the cinematography around him was really good. But I feel like Martin Luther King, arguably more so than Rosa Parks, is such a significant part of history.
Yeah.
That he should have felt bigger.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other historical episodes where they meet someone famous.
Well, I mean,
Shakespeare.
I mean, this is the comparison I would make, because obviously this was a cameo appearance.
Yeah.
Think about that cameo from John Cleese in City of Death, where it's
he's
not
dressed like Basil Fawlty.
now.
As well,
It's not a serious moment.
No,
but people remember that scene so well.
And because modern art.
Yeah, because John Cleese has such a presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, they should have made Martin Luther King, like, even if it was just the same scene. You didn't even necessarily have to write the word. I nearly said lyrics for some reason.
You're just begging to get onto the music, aren't you?
Yeah, it seems so. But Martin Luther King, I felt like, should have been just a bit more of a presence. Yeah. It's not an episode killer by any means, and the guy did a good job. Yeah. I believed him, but it just didn't feel oomphy enough, you know?
I can imagine if this was a RTD era story, it would be one of those moments where he opens the door and then like Ryan sees that it's Martin Luther King. He like his jaw drops and like he stands there and it's like this massive moment where he just steps. And even if it's a cameo, and like the musical motif would like be like, this is.
Remember when the Doctor met Agatha Christie?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you're brilliant." Like, like they kind of did that with Ryan, but like just the way when Agatha Christie entered, like, this is Agatha Christie. Like, this is a big deal for them. Yeah. Like, I felt like Martin Luther King, they should have made it a bit of a bigger deal. Yeah. I don't know. It just didn't feel quite oomphy enough for me.
Yeah. Actually, here's a perfect comparison. Rose Tyler in Partners in Crime. That's what I wanted from Martin Luther King in this episode. You know, that kind of thing where it's like the moment when you see them, it's like that you know exactly who they are.
I would have loved, right, if they hadn't mentioned that Rosa knew Martin Luther King. So Ryan didn't know that she knew Martin Luther King. He went to the house and she's like, "And Dr. Martin Luther King." And then Ryan was like,
"Yeah.
Oh my God." Like, I feel like that would have been just a bit more of a bigger reveal.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, just a little thing like that. Though it was good that it was like foreshadowed and we understood it. Like, I feel like had they not mentioned it before, so he wasn't in the back of our minds. Like, if he just showed up but historically, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's historically accurate that Rosa and Martin Luther King knew each other.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Yeah, having Martin Luther King be a bigger deal.
Yeah. And I don't mean to make it all self-indulgent. I'm just saying, like,
the scene, the length of the scene was perfect.
Yeah.
I just feel like the execution.
Yeah.
It just needed just something more.
I think just Martin Luther King deserves like a punch. You know. Like,
no,
not literally.
Not punching Martin Luther King. That is not what I was saying.
I mean, the entrance of his character
needed to be punchier.
Like it deserves a a moment, you know?
Yeah. Like who are the historical figures he's met?
What, that had like a punch to it?
Yeah. Shut your big fat mouths. When Shakespeare came out, that was great. But no, I wouldn't want it to be a comedic thing. I'd want it to, like, the way they handled it was good, where it was a little bit funny, but you understood Ryan's awe. I just feel like, I don't know, that was just something in the episode that stood out to me, is it just needed a little bit more. Yeah.
But it's not a slight against the episode. It's just
it's just an observation more than anything.
Yeah.
Because it didn't. No, I still enjoyed the fact that Martin Luther King was in it. In fact, I think it's quite good given what the story was about.
Yeah.
That he was there.
And also the fact that, like, Grace was such a big fan of Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And then Ryan gets to actually have a conversation with him about it.
Yeah. How, as you said, Grace was a fan and Ryan was kind of thanking them on behalf of her.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that wish fulfillment thing, which was really cool. Yeah. I really like that. Okay, what other side characters were there? The sheriff. He didn't do much. He was just kind of in one scene. The guy, the other bus driver. My wife's a big fan of Sinatra.
Wait, which one was this one?
The guy in the house who they told won the contest. He was very funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Right now?
Yeah, that was funny.
It was a good. I like that.
Yeah, there was lots of little characters here and there that like just added to the story.
Yeah, and like there was things like the waitress, but she was more just there to get
insert racism.
Yeah. Didn't really leave much of an impact. I mean, obviously it was horrible.
I think they were all very... One thing I will comment on, because I don't actually have a section for like costume and whatnot, but...
oh, yeah!
Everyone was really well dressed.
The costume design was awesome.
Yeah.
And like when... Krasko?
Yeah.
When he was in the boiler suit with the cheese cutter, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll cancel the route." Like, and he looked like appropriate. Like, lots of little costumes and stuff were real good.
Yeah, definitely bought that this was the time period.
100%.
Yeah. I can't think of any other side characters, to be honest. Yeah. Any major ones that left an impact.
Also, I'd like to go back on James Blake just briefly.
Yeah.
Wait, was it James Blake?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the fishing scene.
Yes.
Where we got a little bit more of that. He was a hateful man, because when Ryan touched him, he like freaked out.
Yeah.
But the fact that we...
Although, to be fair, if someone, anyone came up to me when I was relaxing and just did that to me, I'd be a bit freaked out as well.
But like, because I'd forgotten about that scene when we were talking about it just before. So we did get to see a bit more of a hateful side of him. Yeah. But the fact that we got to see him when he was calm as well as him when he was angry, that was good writing, because we just got to see a bit more of this, the other important figure in this story.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's all about Rosa, as it should be.
Yeah.
But you can't have, the Batman without the Joker,
Yeah.
You need that adversary.
Yeah.
Alright, so what other side characters were there?
Can't think of any, to be honest.
No, I think that was pretty much it. I'm sure there's one that we've forgotten and some people are screaming at us in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're not memorable enough, then why would you mention them?
Absolutely. Alright, now we'll just get into the meat of it. The plot.
How do I say this? All the bits with Mallory Blackman, I think, were very, like, the primary objective.
All the Rosa stuff.
Yeah, was really good. There was some stuff that I don't know this for sure, but there was some stuff that I could just tell Chris Chibnall wrote. That seemed...
There was some Chibnall-y...
Like, I think that last scene in the TARDIS where they go to visit the asteroid, that was Chibnall. I'm 99% sure. And you can tell because the dialogue changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, they're all stood in a row.
Yeah.
Talking to each other. Saying questions.
Yeah.
Like, it was very sort of flat, that ending.
Oh.
Like, the fact that we got to see the real Rosa Parks was lovely.
Yeah.
And the asteroid being there, the idea of the scene was lovely. It's just the writing... Yeah, it did. You're right, it felt different for the worse.
I've got a feeling that Chibnall dealt with some of the more sci-fi elements to this story.
The one thing, maybe was Chibnall, I don't know, like the Banksy joke, I don't know. But I found that funny, but it just seems sort of different to the tone of the rest of the episode.
I think I struggled to get my head around some of the jokes in this because there were references to things that I don't think I quite understand.
Banksy, as far as I understand, is an anonymous artist who's like... I think one of his famous pranks was he broke into the Tate Modern, the art gallery in London. Yeah. I think it's in London. It's in England somewhere. And he put paintings in.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing he does, or she does. And they're anonymous. No one really knows who they are.
Right.
I'm sure there are people who do know who they are. But, like, generally speaking, the point of it is kind of anonymity. As far as I'm sure someone can correctly, because I only vaguely know him, so I'm sure someone can correct me and be a bit more specific. But Banksy, like the Banksy thing, that was funny, like because he does graffiti and stuff. But they're like, they always have a point to them, and he's like, "Oh, stop being around here like you're Banksy." Well, am I? That was quite funny. I thought that was quite amusing because of the whole anonymity thing.
So maybe she is Banksy.
I like that idea.
Okay.
I like that idea. The Doctor breaking into an art gallery. That's a great idea for an episode. The Doctor breaking into an art gallery to put art in. Yeah.
Well, maybe now I'm just thinking of that scene from the start of Planet of the Dead where Christina comes from the roof and steals the cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Doctor doing it in reverse and putting it back. Chaotic neutral. Yeah, what else happened in the plot?
Chaotic neutral is the thingy I chose for when I was a few months ago starting a game of, what's it called?
Dungeons and Dragons, yeah.
But we haven't played it properly yet because of reasons.
Yeah. I was chaotic evil.
Oh, of course.
Whoops.
And And your thing was based on Rob Sherman.
There were a lot of people murdered. In fact, in my campaign, I ended up somehow kidnapping a baby and raising a child because I murdered its parents.
Forced adoption.
Kinda. And then, in another game we played, I played as that child, and my whole mission was to find my previous character and kill them. In a twisted version of revenge.
But yeah, the plot. Like I said, the story didn't necessarily blow me away, but it was very good.
And it was more than just like last episodes where it was efficiently told. It was very well told.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah. There were no massive holes.
No massive holes in the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one big issue that I have that some of you probably have already figured out because you probably share it with me.
Yeah, we'll get onto that.
Yeah. But no, the actual plot itself and like the way that everything, there was lighthearted moments that didn't feel out of place. The racism was played just right. It was like the fact that, mongrels, you calling them mongrels and things like that. Instead of having to use the N-word, because they couldn't, nor should they have. It worked. Like it still made it feel impactful. Yeah, I mean,
there's always going to be people that'll get offended by these episodes because sensitive. A lot of people are sensitive, but
that goes. Some people hate something being political anyway. Who've clearly never watched any of John Pertwee's era. Former Communist Party member Malcolm Hulk. It makes so much sense. But
well, I guess by that thought, the War Games is kind of like Time Lords of capitalists. Organizing the world into sections.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but that's a whole different topic.
As long as my stance on this is as long as they don't force you.
Like the thing is, it's not. The thing is, like, because I don't want to. No one wants this to get too political, but like, if you have a problem with racism being portrayed as a bad thing, then you probably need to rethink your life decisions. You know?
Yeah. I guess people would just maybe. It's like, maybe people think it's like, oh, if you go over the top portraying white people as racist, it's making it seem exaggerated.
Yeah, which is a genuine concern from a storytelling standpoint, because that can take you any over-the-top villain, unless it's something like the guy from the Pirate Planet, who's amazing. But this episode was not written by Douglas Adams, so it couldn't be. But from a storytelling aspect, like you wouldn't want any over-the-top villain, especially in this story. Like it wouldn't have worked for what your story, for when you're doing this.
It is kind of funny how this TV show is in the same canon as Talons of Wang Chiang, where the Doctor literally is like, he's just Chinese. And I'm like, whoa!
And there's an actor in Chinese makeup.
But the thing is that they can't just, they can't get rid of that story because it's one of the most popular...
It's a really good story.
It's popular stories of all time.
Aged poorly.
And then you've got the Crusade with the blacked up actors and...
But no, the way they handled everything was handled with a lot of grace. I really like that.
I like a bit of term.
Yeah. But no, I think it was well done. The story progressed in such a manner that
basically they didn't fuck it up.
Yeah, and also when it got to the point where Graham was on the bus and he said, "I don't want to be a part of this," it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like that as a plot device didn't feel contrived. It felt believable that he would be in that situation and he would feel that way. Okay, on to our next topic. The writers.
Correct.
On to the writers. Mallory Blackman and Chris Chibnall. We touched on this briefly before. There are some Chibnallisms where we think we can pinpoint what was written by Chibnall and what was written by her. Mm-hmm. Because the stuff that's written by her is fucking awesome.
Now, here's the thing. An example. I'm going to give two examples here. One is when you have the writer and the showrunner writing at the same time, and it's absolutely brilliant. I think you'll probably figure it out. And the other is the opposite. And then we'll compare.
Yeah.
Obviously, the brilliant one is The Waters of Mars.
Oh.
Phil Ford and Russell T Davies.
Yeah.
That's when you get two amazing ideas put together, and it just makes a classic.
It just becomes cohesive and brilliant.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on who came up with what, but my guess would be that Phil Ford came up with the Flood. Yeah. And Russell T Davies came up with the Time Lord Victorious plot.
Russell was like, yeah, fuck you and your happiness, fuck you.
Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. Yeah. Then you get the polar opposite when two writers don't have chemistry.
Yep.
The Girl Who Died.
Yeah.
Jamie Mathieson and Stephen Moffat.
They really butted heads.
Yeah.
This was nowhere near as bad as that in terms of clashing.
Absolutely not.
Because Chibnall, he's such a passive writer, it seems that even though it stands out, it doesn't actively take away from what's being written within the same episode. Like, it was distracting a little bit, but the other stuff was so good that it overpowered Chibnall's kind of undercutting.
I do appreciate that Chibnall didn't just jump in and change a lot of stuff.
No.
Because that's what...
There was nothing...
That is what Moffat did with The Girl Who Died, and it ruins the episode, because I think what Jamie Mathieson probably came up with originally was decent.
Yeah.
But you can just tell that Stephen Moffat just went in and just scribbled all over it, because, like, there's so many inconsistencies in The Girl Who Died, and, like, the Doctor's character is all over the place in it. And, it's good that Chibnall didn't do that, because that would have spoiled the episode.
Absolutely. Like, nothing Chibnall did overbeared the episode.
Yeah.
And I don't think, to any real degree, it pulled the episode too far down. Yeah. It was just noticeable when there was something a little bit off.
Yeah, I think he was just filling some of the cracks and rounding it off a little bit, putting it a bit of shine.
Yeah, but, like, that's what he's good at.
Yeah.
Because that's the sort of showrunner duty is sort of... But clearly he did more than what just usual showrunner duty, because he had a credit on the episode. But that could have just been maybe he had a key idea. Like, maybe it was his idea that they have to get Rosa Parks to do the thing. Like, that was his idea, and then he gave it to her and said, run with it. Maybe we're wrong, or maybe that's something like that. But it just feels like there are certain elements which seems like Chris Chibnall's writing, whereas the rest of the writing for all the characters is so much better and so much more improved and so much more engaging, I found. I'm out of coffee. On that front. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was fine. You can definitely tell which scenes Chibnall wrote, but it doesn't ruin the story like it does in The Girl Who Died.
For sure, yeah.
But it's not as good as The Waters of Mars, where he takes the story to another level.
Yeah, but they don't elevate each other.
I don't think Chibnall has that in him.
I've seen nothing yet that would make me think that. He does a good job of having a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, true.
I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Excellent. So, I think, is there anything more else to add?
No, I just want to say Mallory Blackman has proven herself as a Doctor Who writer.
Please come back and do more.
Yeah.
Please come back and do more.
Because she's very clever.
Yeah.
At crafting an episode.
And there was accusations of sort of token hiring, you know?
Yeah.
But that's not the case with this. You can see she's brilliant.
I would say it actually had the opposite effect, because this story is linked with
race.
Race, potentially, you know, her childhood, her family talked about this event and made it seem so important. This is part of her own personal history, so she has this passion about it. Therefore, the episode had a lot of passion behind it.
But she also wrote a fun sci-fi story within that as well.
Exactly. She didn't just make it about it.
And it wasn't all miserable. She had fun moments of levity that worked, and she just balanced everything and just
at
got
the end
what
of the
show...
day, this was Doctor Who.
Yeah. This, like, the other two felt like Doctor Who, but just a little bit... It wasn't my Doctor Who. This, I was like, this is Doctor Who. Like... Yeah. I really liked this. Yeah. So I hope she comes back and does more, because this was really good. I was really impressed by her.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll get on to the director, Marc Tondere.
Same director as The Ghost Monument.
How?
Well, here's the thing. A.
Better script.
Better script. B. Different type of episode.
Very different.
More drama based.
Which meant the dramatic close-ups actually fit sometimes.
Also, both episodes had experimental cinematography, but this one was less risky.
I'll let you take away the shot that we were both thoroughly impressed by.
The TARDIS materialization shot at the beginning of the episode is one of my favorite TARDIS entrances I've ever seen.
So, we cut to a screen, 12 years later, or whatever it is, 1955, fade in, there's the back of a car.
Like, this scene, this shot, it's 100,000% 1955 from the direction to the music to the cars and everything. Absolutely 100% you believe it. Turns around a corner, something like out of a video game, TARDIS materializes. It's amazing.
You get the setting, you get the vibe, the camera moves in this gorgeous tracking shot, it pans across, still shot. Not only does the TARDIS materialize, but the Doctor gets out.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You get the setting, you get the Doctor, you get a very nice visualization of the TARDIS materializing. Yeah. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Shot of the series so far. Because I know a lot of people loved the crash landing in the Ghost Monument. Unfortunately for me, it didn't do it enough.
Felt a bit flat for me.
Yeah, it was a nice idea, but it just didn't. They didn't execute it to the full potential that it had. But this shot, 100% A+, brilliant. It was
More
amazing.
of this.
Yeah, because I think we've had enough still. I mean, the other day we watched Colony in Space, and like it's literally just the TARDIS appears with no face.
It just pops in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to get something like that was a nice treat.
Yeah.
I think. Some of the cinematography in this episode was still a bit too experimental for me, but I will give it a pass because I know that's what they're doing in this season.
And also, like, some of the close-ups, as I just mentioned before, a lot of the close-ups worked more in this episode. They felt like there was a bit more of purpose to them.
Yeah.
Like, I can't...
Because they... Okay, so something that they've done a lot in this season so far, I've got shots in my head. There's one of when Tim Shaw takes his mask off. There's the ones of Graham and Ryan in the Ghost Monument sitting down. There's the shots of Jodie and... Crasco talking. They all do this thing where they put the character to the close side and have dead space behind them.
Yeah.
I don't 100% understand what the purpose of it is apart from experimenting. I think it works better in this because at least there's an eye line.
Yeah.
With the one with Ryan and Graham, there was no eye line, and that's why it didn't work.
The only one that in Woman Who Fell to Earth with Tim Shaw was just to show the teeth thing.
Yeah.
But I found that kind of took away because as soon as I got up close to the teeth, I was like, that's a really disappointing design. Yeah. For me personally.
Yeah.
So like that didn't quite work. But in terms of a function, I understood the function of going up close to Tim Shaw just so we could see the gnarly teeth.
Yeah.
But in terms of Ghost Monument, stop with the close-ups.
It was a horribly edited episode.
But
a waste of nicely shot. Cinematography.
But in this one, as we said, that maybe it's just because we're getting more used to it. But in this, but at least there did seem to be more of a function and a purpose.
There were a couple of moments where I was jarred. But
there were absolutely.
It was less.
It felt like it was flowing better.
Yeah. And
like when it cut to a close-up, it felt like a close-up for a reason. Like there was a close-up of Graham when he said, "Is it just me, or did it suddenly go very quiet in here?" Yeah. Like there's a point to the close-up.
Yeah.
It's not,
they weren't as forced, I don't think.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, it's like it seemed more cohesive.
Yeah. But yeah, Marc Tondere did a good job, I think, on this one.
Absolutely, I agree. Very, very good job, and the editing was good. Now, next topic, the music by the incredible Sega Nakanola.
He gets better with every episode.
This episode, he was stunning.
Yeah, like he was decent in The Woman Who Fell to Earth. He was pretty darn good in The Ghost Monument, and this one he was like he's just proven himself.
Yeah,
he
solidified.
It's funny because like his style is controlling himself to a point where he doesn't want to steal the scene. But then, because he's so brilliant, he accidentally steals the scene.
Yeah, I know. He's so good. Like there's in the scene. So we hear Rosa's theme at the beginning. It's sort of triumphant, and then it gets a bit sinister with the whole bus driver thing, and it gets a bit sad. Hard cut to, which I'm assuming it's actual music, the 50s doo-wop song that we hear, which actually having that pop song fit because it was scene setting. Hold on to that thought.
And it was that was diegetic noise.
It could have been, it could have been on the radio. Like
I think it was,
yeah, that was diegetic noise. within the universe of the episode, in case you don't understand.
Just like in Father's Day when they play "Never Gonna Give You Up."
Yeah, absolutely. Or "Toxic" by Britney Spears and Into the World. But anyway, but then later on when villain Krasko shows up, we get the
he's got his little motif. It reminded me of whenever Gilderoy Lockhart enters the scene as except this one was more serious.
Yeah. But it wasn't like here's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Watch out for the bad guy.
Yeah.
It wasn't like all bombastic. It was like he was up to something, but it was quiet and plodding.
Yeah.
But this is great scene. Fuck, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good when Rosa and him meet.
Yeah.
And Rosa's theme's playing, and then as soon as he turns around and we realize it's him, plays over her triumphant trumpets.
Yeah.
And they blend so well.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck, it's so good.
Yeah. Seganekanola knows what he's doing.
Yeah, like, and that was brilliant. And there was tons of moments like that throughout the whole episode where the little music cues weren't used to be like, look, you should be feeling this. It just, it just had the feeling.
Like, okay, we do love Murray Gold, but there are some people that didn't, and I feel like Seganekanola is like this reward for those people that didn't like Murray Gold, and they're finally getting what they want from the music in Doctor Who.
Where it's more, it's less controlling of the scene, but by being so, it's subconsciously more direct.
Yeah,
because it's like latching right onto the I'm not a music student or anything,
like
so
imagine,
I can't.
Imagine how, like, okay, in the Ghost Monument when they're like the cigar scene happens, imagine how jarring it would be to hear "I Am the Doctor" playing.
Bum bum bum
like, it would just be so like, it would just take you out of the scene, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the wonderful Stu Bagfull. If you haven't watched him, go see him.
Yeah,
he's great. Strong recommendation.
My eyes, my eyes.
Yeah, Stu Bagfull's great. But he made a video a couple years back about because he doesn't like Murray Gold's score all that much, because he said "I Am the Doctor" was played too much, and to an extent I agree, because certain heroic moments
it started to
fit.
get that sort of problem where the radio plays songs too much, and you just just stop.
It became white noise as opposed to triumphant. That's not the fault of Murray Gold.
No. Because in the 11th hour, it works amazingly.
Because it's this new theme, and it's like, oh, this guy's the Doctor.
But then by the time you get to dinosaurs on a spaceship, and Rory and his dad are flying these things, and it's playing "I Am the Doctor," it's just like, just fuck off.
And then, Imagine if Seganekanola scored Capaldi's era.
Ooh.
I mean, but that's a difficult one.
But then you wouldn't get Heaven Sent. No.
Like. Man, we're really big on soundtracks, like scores.
Yeah.
Not
just TV, like movies, video games, everything.
My Spotify is like 10% like old 70s rock songs and 90% movie, TV, and video game themes and scores.
Yeah, I've got similar.
I love dissecting them and hearing them and feeling the emotions and just everything like that.
This is why my favorite band is Pink Floyd, because their songs are essentially soundtracks.
Have you seen the video where someone played it over Paul Blart Mall Cop 2? Check it out.
Okay.
It'll blow your mind.
Okay.
Terrible movie, but it's like to quote the guys who did it, it's a religious fucking experience when you play Pink Floyd underneath.
There's a reason why technically 2, but they did 3 albums. Actually, 4. They did 4 albums that were soundtracks to movies.
Yeah.
Right? They did more. They did Zabriskie Point, Obscured by Clouds, which was for some indie European film. And then by the time they got big enough, they made their own film, The Wall.
Yeah.
And that's a soundtrack as well.
We don't need no education.
But soundtracks are a big deal for us.
So the fact that Seganekanola has come in with a completely different vibe from Murray Gold, but just, God, does he work. And the subtler things he does. It seems like he's a much more meticulous and and subtle. Like, I love Murray Gold. Like, Murray Gold is an absolute genius. But Sega Nakanola's score in this episode in particular was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm every week I'm going to look forward to what Sega Nakanola brings to the
episodes. I cannot wait for the soundtrack as a whole.
And the thing that I most like about him is that when he repeats things, it doesn't feel samey.
No, it seems like there's a point.
Yeah.
That being said, though the music was one of my favorite things about the episode, it has to be brought up. The pop song.
Yes, this wasn't Akinola's score. This was what's the song called?
Stand Up, I think, or something like that. I'm sure someone can correct us.
Now there's a scene, everyone knows it probably, at the end of Vincent and the Doctor, when he walks into the museum. They play a song called, I think it's Chances or Changes, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Chances. And it's a risky move to put that kind of music in Doctor Who, because I don't think before that point it had ever been done except for diegetic noise.
Yeah.
But in that scene it works, I think, just because the way they craft it seems to like just blend in with the story somehow.
Yeah.
And I think because it felt earned I reckon.
Whereas
with this, even though it wasn't horrible, it just takes you away, doesn't it?
For me, because I'm so big on scores, it pulled me right out. Yeah. Like, the piano, the actual riff and melody of the song itself is lovely, but it's purely hearing someone singing that's not in Latin, that's non-diegetic noise. Yeah. It really took me out of it, and it felt like it's like, you should be feeling emotion at this, as opposed to making me feel emotion. I was just like, shut up and let me just feel, like, let me just experience this. It really didn't work for me. I can see why it could work for a lot of people, but it really soured that scene for me. Like, because I was so ready to just cry at the episode. I was ready to cry. And then that song happened, and it had the opposite effect, where I was just like, oh, I'm just hearing a song that I just don't like. Yeah. It doesn't fit. Like, and I believe the song was actually written about Rosa Parks, which I can see why that could work, but not in Doctor Who. It just doesn't seem right for me.
It's interesting though, because it's hard to pinpoint it, because for some reason it works in Vincent and the Doctor.
Yeah. You know? I have an issue with it there as well.
Yeah.
That's just because I'm grumpy. But like, this one really soured it for me at the last minute. I
think one of the big differences is in Vincent and the Doctor, it doesn't just happen. Like, it sort of slowly makes its way into the scene.
Yeah. Whereas
and then it doesn't hit until he goes into the museum.
Yeah. Whereas this one is like, and emotional song, and you're gonna feel it. I would have much rather had Sega Nakanola play a piece of piano, compose something on a piece of piano. Like, the reason why Sega Nakanola's score worked really well throughout this whole episode, it was understated. Yeah. And if they were because they overplayed it, like, they completely overplayed the moment, so it killed it for me. Like, the writing of the scene, the acting of the scene, the direction of the scene, Rosa's little smile at Ryan as she goes out the bus is beautiful. But that song just killed it for me. It reminded me, oh yeah, no, you're watching a TV show. They've put this song in to make you feel emotion, as opposed to being like sucked in.
Yeah, and that might seem like a nitpick to you, but to us, it makes a big difference.
We're so big on music, as you probably guessed.
Like, because that was the main problem that we had with the trailer for Series 11 was that Macklemore song. Yeah. It just doesn't feel like Doctor Who.
No.
Yeah.
It just felt really. It just didn't fit. Yeah. I just. Yeah. It was really such a downer note on an episode. I was really, from frame one all the way up until that point, I was so into it. I was like, I'm loving this. This is great. And it was just that one thing. It wasn't so much the straw that broke the camel's back, so much as a giant tree trunk. Like, where it was just one thing that did it. that didn't push me over the edge, because there was nothing else that built up to this. It was just this one thing that just did it really wrong for me personally. I can see why it would work for other people, absolutely.
Yeah, it has.
Especially for new audiences who are coming into the show and don't have a pre-established idea of how the show sort of is structured and functions with the score and everything. And it's fine that they're trying new things. It's just
that sort of thing works in movies
and Netflix shows and like Stranger Things, for example. They use songs that are non-diegetic all the time, and that works. But just for Doctor Who, I would have just much rather have heard an expanded version of Rosa's theme, like take that little motif that Sega Nakanola had written and expand it and make it a bit more downbeat and emotional, but sort of like, have melancholic, because as the Doctor said, her life became more difficult, but she led to great things. It just.
Would the scene have worked better for you if it was the same song but without the vocals?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would have been. I was actually thinking that whilst watching the episode. Well, as I was writing my notes, like, if it was just that piano riff, if it was just the instrumental version of that song, it would have been great.
Yeah.
I would have been so into it. But because of the vocals, that scratchy voice, which isn't a bad voice, but it just. It just didn't click. Didn't click with me. Yeah. It really soured my enjoyment at the last minute.
Yeah, that's unfortunate as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, the score, and Sega Nakanola's score was amazing.
Gorgeous. I can't wait till we get to finales and whatnot. I'm ready for him to just.
Yeah. Imagine something like the Madame de Pompadour suite.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, because if they played a pop song on Girl in the Fireplace, they just
it would have just that episode would be so much less for me.
Imagine if Girl in the Fireplace had time to say goodbye.
But also or even Human Nature and the Family of Blood.
Oh no!
When the Doctor's crying, and it's just oh god, it's just. I don't know, it's just, this is, even though it's about a real thing, it's still a science fiction fantasy show.
Yeah.
And having modern day pop music just, I don't know, there was something about it that just didn't sit with me. Didn't sit with me. And that's a real shame.
I'm real interested now when we get up to Vincent and the Doctor with Jake. I'm really interested to see what he thinks of that music, because he's even more than us, he's into music.
Absolutely.
And it's a lot. There's a lot I'm waiting for him to comment on.
We'll get there with him. Don't worry. Just patience, please. He's a very busy man.
Yeah. High demand. Very talented.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we'll get on to the overnight viewing figures, which is 6.3 million.
Mm-hmm. It's down 800,000 from the Ghost Monument. And 2 million from overnight from Women Who Fell to Earth.
It's a decrease, but again, if it stays at the sort of 6.5, that's fine. If it goes below 5, that's when
we get into Capaldi era territory.
If it gets below 5, that's when I'm going to start getting worried again that the show may get cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 is still fine, though.
6 is good. It's down, and that's unfortunate because this was the best episode so far, in my opinion. But
Bad Wolf got 6.
Yeah, true.
And so, I feel like 6 is not bad.
No, it's still 6 million people just overnight.
Yeah, in 2018 as well.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. But it's just hopefully it doesn't go below that. Hopefully with this episode and people realizing, they did something like this, next episode there'll be renewed interest and more people come back and we'll go back up to about 7.
Yeah, okay.
We'll see.
We'll see. Go for the notes.
Oh yes, I'll just quickly have a look through Connor's notes that he wrote through our rewatch.
Yes.
Great materialization shot, better use of companion, Channing Tatum.
Yes.
We mentioned it.
I think I mentioned that, yeah.
Good ties? Like ties or
No. That was about 1 Elvis and 2 Martin Luther King.
Yes,
Yeah.
Convincing America.
Yeah.
Production design was awesome in this
Yeah,
episode.
it's brilliant.
Even though I believe it was shot in South Africa.
Yeah, and that's even better.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you can make it look like America in South Africa.
Yeah. As we mentioned, some of the cinematography was a bit too experimental.
Yeah. I know you liked that scene on top of the barrels.
Yeah.
But I found some of the shots were too... They reminded me of someone on holiday with their...
No, I agree with that. The cinematography, I can see
There's
that.
There's a particular shot where she's holding up his thing.
Yeah.
And the sun is so blinding that I can't really see it.
No, that's true. Like the sun rays and stuff, the God rays, I wasn't so big on.
I wanted like a close up of her holding it.
But it's because for me the script was so strong in that scene that I was able to look past that. But like the cinematography, that wide shot of the two of them, I really like. But yeah, I could see the inconsistencies in the editing and whatnot. Weird transitions.
Yeah, it's not as bad as the Ghost Monument or the Woman Who Fell to Earth.
But there are still a few of them.
But your Ghost Monument had terrible transitions, like the one with Ryan and the ladder and then going up and it's all blue on the sand. Like, that was awful. Yeah. There's still some in this one, but they're not as bad. They're just like... There was one, I think it was when they went from... I can't remember what came before it, but it's that scene with the four of them standing like next to the sun.
Oh yeah, where it says whites only and it pans down. That's a beautiful shot. Yeah.
Yeah, and but that shot, like the transition between the last scene and that shot felt weird to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good humor.
Yeah, this was a funny script.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah. See.
Yep.
So that's exactly what I mean.
Good references to Grace.
Yep.
Jodie is way more natural.
Yep.
Jodie duality.
Yeah. So last week, your uncle said that Jodie wasn't showing enough duality, but in this she showed it in spades.
Perfect. And it felt natural too, as we touched on when we started.
Yeah.
Focus and passion.
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of passion behind this episode from the people involved. You can tell that they really cared about it. Yeah,
it was a well-loved story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anything else to add from your notes?
I don't think I had any more notes than that.
I'll just have a quick flick through my notes. Like the music at the beginning with the 50s sort of doo-wop music, it fits because it could be diegetic as well as, even if it's non-diegetic, it helps set the scene. It feels appropriate. And then I have in capital letters Sagan music. And then immediately feel for Rosa without it being forced.
Yeah.
Car tracking shot. TARDIS. Oh yeah, when they go into the TARDIS console room, it's lit way better. So I still don't like its design, but it looked way better here.
Yeah, I don't know the what's it called? The columns,
the pillars or whatever. Yeah,
they look weird.
Their placement's weird. They should be like embedded in the roof and the wall.
Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the opposite of the usual awed entrance and going like, oh, we've time traveled with the slap. Music, and then in capital letters, music. Oh yeah, we don't serve them here, and then he says, good because I don't eat them.
Yeah,
that's a funny line.
Yeah, see, this script is actually funny, like for adults.
Yeah.
I found that some of Chibnall's stuff was just a bit naff.
Yeah. Cuts are less jarring. There are jarring cuts, but they're
less jarring,
yeah. Still a few too many close-ups without any reason. Rosa and the bad guys music I have in capital letters. Doctor's standoff in the silo, I like that. Beautiful shot. Don't know what that's referring to. Oh, probably the whites only, I think. Pan down into the car park. Cheap and nasty callback with the cheap and nasty time travel.
Yeah.
Don't threaten me. Brilliant. The Banksy joke, I really like. Oh, yeah, and there's a gorgeous piece of cinematography when the cop first knocks on the door and it opens and we see the doctor in profile and we see the silhouette of the cop on the door. It looked really cool. Graham being a bus driver that we learned and that coming back.
See, that's ties again.
Yep.
Like I said.
Jodie's acting, Rosa's theme, the raffle went a bit, which was very funny and sweet. The setup and payoff of the Elvis joke. The Graham reveal at the end, I don't want to be a part of this, stunningly executed.
Yeah. do you want me to say what my darker idea was for that scene? So when I was watching it, I had this thought in my head, what if... I know this isn't historically accurate, but I had this instant sort of thought of what if Graham was the one that told her to get off the seat.
Because it, like, time...
Like, he was forced to be racist because time...
Yeah, that would have been nasty.
Yeah.
That would have been, yeah,
Oof.
horrible. I wrote, yeah. Yeah, I was not happy with the...
No, you weren't happy with that.
I wrote several lines about how I was not happy with the pop song.
Nope.
Should have just been piano. Rosa's smile to Ryan was great. Talking about how she continued to struggle, so it wasn't just a airy-fairy ending. Like, it was talking about the realities of how life was shit for her still going forward. Her and her husband both lost their job. And then showing the real Rosa in that little clip. Though the dialogue was a little weird and the staging was a little weird.
Chris Chibnall.
The actual idea of it was...
Chris Chibnall, so I guarantee it.
But the actual seeing of it was...
I really didn't like how they were all just lined up. It felt so forced.
Yeah, it didn't feel natural at all. Cool. So I think that's pretty much it for Rosa.
Just got to give a conclusion and a rating out of 10. You go first.
Really liked this episode. My conclusion is that this episode by far is the best one of Series 11. So far. I was enraptured by it. They made Rosa a good character. I love historicals. I was hoping it'd be a pure historical. It wasn't, but the sci-fi elements didn't clash with the main story in a bad way. It flowed cohesively. It was funny. The companions were more fleshed out. Things were set up and paid off. Things flowed naturally. It didn't seem forced at any point. My only really big negative is the pop song, which completely killed the episode for me at the end. Like, I don't think I'm understanding quite how badly it affected me. I almost, other than like a few of the editing things which we mentioned, I didn't really have any major issues with the episode. Then the pop song came on and I was out of it. I just did not enjoy the episode. And I've seen this episode 3 times, and every time it happens, like, I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm so engaged that I forget the pop song's coming up, and then the pop song happens, and it just it's like a slap in the face for me. It just didn't work for me at all. So other than that, there's no real major complaint except for the weak ending of the bad guy, who my final verdict on that is up in the air as if he comes back later in the season, if that ties in any way. Other than that, no, I really, really enjoyed it. It wasn't a masterpiece. At least I don't think it is yet. I'll have to wait a while before I can and see how it feels about it in like a month's time, when it's not so fresh, when I've had time to really sink it in and feel it. Like episodes like Midnight and Heaven Sent, which took a while for me to sink in and be like, no, that was brilliant. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad we had this episode because it's turned the series around for me. I'm rooting that the series will go forward in this kind of positive direction where each episode has its own identity, but it's still really cohesive and focused and fun. And my overall rating, most of the episode, I was actually thinking of giving it a 9.
Woo, that's big for you.
Yeah.
You gave Girl in the Fireplace a 9.
Yeah, I did. But the pop song ruined it for me to such a degree that it's only going down to an 8.
Oof.
It's an 8 out of 10 for me.
Damn. Well, that's still high for you.
Yeah.
8 is...
I really liked it,
Don't get a lot of 8s from you, to be honest.
No.
You're very strict.
I am. I really liked this episode, yeah.
So, Rosa is a lovely episode. It's never going to be my favourite of all time or anything like that. It's my favourite of Series 11 so far. But, yeah, it's an episode that I appreciate and I enjoy, and for the most part I think it delivers. There is a small part of me that I don't want to be harsh on it in any way, but there is a small part of me that sort of thinks that this is slightly not my cup of tea. However, for what it is, it's really good, and I appreciate it a lot. A couple of things disappointed me slightly. The villain, the Krasko, his exit felt underwhelming. I wanted to know more. We might get some more from him later. Maybe retrospectively, I might appreciate this episode more on rewatch after the series is over. But who knows? We'll see. The pop song was jarring. There was a couple of scenes that seemed like they could have fixed, tweaked the pacing a little bit. There wasn't, like, it flowed nicely, but there are improvements you could make. I was still very jarred by some of the edits. Not as badly as the Ghost Monument or Women Who Fell to Earth, but the editing was just, there was a couple of scenes that it just bothers me. It's a tough one because it seems to a lot of people like it would be a minor problem, but for me, being someone who is actively an editor, I get very obsessive over these details, and unfortunately sometimes it can spoil moments. However, the story is very strong, and I think that Mallory Blackman has proved that she can write good Doctor Who. So I give this episode a solid rating of 7.5 out of 10.
Excellent. Now, to preview next week, it's called
Arachnids in the UK by Chris Chibnall.
What?
Yes. What? Yes, by Chris Chibnall. Pretty sure.
Well, next week's going to be boring. Bye! No, yeah, I just... Yeah. Oh, that's deflating.
Yeah. And the week after that's by Chibnall as well. But then, after that, it'll be all new writers until we get to the finale, and then the finale's Chibnall. So, we're almost there. But... given that this is a story that's based around Yasmin's family, I understand why the showrunner has to handle it. It's just that we've kind of soured on Chibnall a little bit lately.
Yeah.
And that is not encouraging.
Though, he's good at family drama and Broadchurch. But Broadchurch, this isn't.
No.
It can't be.
If we get something to the same level that we got with Grace and Woman Who Fell to Earth, I'd be satisfied.
Yeah.
I just hope that it's not as boring. Like, I didn't think it was... okay, don't get me wrong. I didn't think Woman Who Fell to Earth was boring necessarily. It just...
unengaging a little bit.
Yeah, it was... Yeah. It could have been better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be interesting. I don't trust Chibnall with spiders. Like, I feel like it's just going to be a monster of the week.
It'd be cool if it was like... oh no, I don't want him to rely on nostalgia too much, but it'd be neat if there was another Rachnos story.
I've got a feeling he might refer to Planet of the Spiders.
Probably.
Isn't it Metabilis 3 or something?
Something like that.
Yeah. Because he is... I know he's a Pertwee fan. But yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah. He's the one that brought back the Silurians. And he put them again in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, technically. And there's rumours about him bringing back the Sea Devils.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Earth-based.
Yeah.
You know. But, yeah, that should be interesting. I don't know. It could be fun, but it's... look, this is the problem. It's not going to be a two-parter. It's just single standing episodes. So what... outside of the family drama, what are you going to do? I guess the thing I'm most excited for is to actually get something with Yasmin focused.
Yeah.
Because that's what the series needs at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to see more of Yasmin, and that's what we're getting, so that's good. It's just that's Chibnall.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably going to be another, let's go and do a Doctor Who story.
Tick-tock, his countdown timer.
There you go. Cool. And it's...
fine.
Fine.
It's going to be fine.
Yep. Yes. Well.
See you then, I guess.
Yeah.